On this edition of Upfront Inside the Entertainment Industry, Ray Cornelius continues his conversation about Pearl Clegg's new play, Something Moving, a meditation on Maynard, by talking to his wife and former First Lady of Atlanta, Mrs. Valerie Jackson. Mrs. Jackson invited Ray to her home to talk exclusively about her late husband, the man, the mayor, and visionary behind the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport and the Atlanta Jazz Festival. More Upfront after the break.
I want to go back to the beginning because when we walked in, I was like, wow, this place is beautiful. There are gorgeous photos over there of Maynard's family. John Wesley Dobbs, who was really, I would say, they call him the unofficial mayor of Atlanta.
Exactly, exactly.
But he really started all of this, if you will. Let's talk about that if we can.
John Wesley Dobbs was truly a unique figure because he grew up on a farm. His father had been a slave. And so he basically kind of self-educated himself and became very involved in politics early on. He started the Georgia Voters League, which was a league to inspire blacks to vote. As a matter of fact, Mayor Hartsfield was running for re-election, and he knew the black population had grown, and he wanted to be sure that he got some black votes.
Right.
And so for years, the John Wesley Dobbs and his cohorts had been trying to get black men on the police force, but it never happened, no matter how much they pleaded or begged or whatever. So he finally met with Hartsfield, and he told Mayor Hartsfield that we really believe that we need black police in Atlanta, and you need black police in Atlanta, and we need to figure out a way how we can make it happen. So Mayor Hartsfield said to him, well, if you bring me 10,000 registered voters, I'll give you some black policemen. Sure enough, John Wesley Dobbs went out and gathered that 10,000. It was like that, brought it back to the mayor, and they were given policemen. Only 8. And keep in mind that they could not arrest white people. They could not carry guns. They could not change in the police department downtown. They had to change at the Black YMCA on Auburn Avenue. I believe it's Butler Street Y. Right. There were so many conditions added on to them being policemen that they were barely policemen.
Right. They were limited.
But it was a start.
Right.
It was a start. And among other things, that's one of the great accomplishments that John Wesley Dobbs, and he was very involved in businesses on Auburn Avenue. As a matter of fact, they used to call him the mayor of Sweet Auburn Avenue.
Right, right.
Because he kind of helped people to get their business together, to tell them how to do this or how to do that. And he was very involved in the Masons, high position in the Masons. And so he really was a leader before his own time, which is how Maynard probably got to be a leader before his time, too.
Absolutely.
Because he had a great role model. Not only John Wesley Dobbs, but Maynard's father, Maynard Jackson Sr., was a very avant-garde man. He was the first black to run for the school board in Dallas, Texas. He was a minister by trade. And as a matter of fact, Maynard's whole family was composed, all the men were ministers. His grandfather, his uncles, and so his father. And so Maynard Jackson Sr. was minister of Friendship Baptist Church, and he started a neighborhood housing project to be able to create affordable housing for blacks in the neighborhood. Once again, a very forward-thinking person, very bright. He studied Greek and other languages, and he was very romantic, which I think is where Maynard got his from. He would read poetry to his wife. We called her Mama Irene. To Maynard's mother, Irene Dobbs Jackson. He would read poetry to her and play the piano and serenade her with his piano.
what I think is so amazing about what you just said is that there's this streamline of leadership, this legacy of leadership that Maynard comes from. The fact that he was one of the youngest to attend Morehouse College and graduate. He was 14 years old.
He started at 14, graduated at 18.
Wow. And then to become the first black mayor of Atlanta and the first black mayor of a major southern city.
Right, right.
That was huge.
It was huge, and let me tell you how that all started. When Martin Luther King was assassinated, and then a couple of months later, Robert Kennedy was assassinated. The day that Robert Kennedy was assassinated, Maynard said, "That's it." Herman Talmadge was running for re-election, and Herman Talmadge, as Maynard would often tell people, was a dyed-in-the-wool segregationalist. He had written a book about how to, I'm not sure what the name of it was, but it taught people how not to integrate. It was, it was a segregationalist book. So Maynard said he was not going to let this man go unopposed. Being the nice, not being the nice guy that he should be, right? So Maynard quit his job at the Emory University Law Center, borrowed $3,000, and qualified to run for the U.S. Senate against Herman Talmadge. Now, of course, he did not win, but he gave Herman Talmadge a run for his money because he did carry Atlanta.
Okay.
And that was the start of his entrance into politics in Atlanta, because having beat Herman Talmadge in Atlanta, he knew that there was an opportunity there to run for elected office.
There was a city waiting for him.
Yes, yes. So, and then of course he ran for mayor. Well, he was also vice mayor before that, elected vice mayor.
Right.
And then he ran for mayor and was elected mayor. So, it was a heavy weight. It was a heavy weight for him to carry as the first black mayor, especially since so many people were expecting so much. And then there were others who were afraid of so much. You had the white citizens who were afraid, oh my God, we got a black mayor, he's just gonna strip us of our rights. And the black community was saying, oh God, thank God we've got a black mayor, now we're gonna get everything we need. So he had the unrealistic expectations of black people and the unrealistic fears of white people. But Maynard's solution was to do the politics of inclusion. And his point was not to deny anything to white citizens, but to create an Atlanta that would be fair to black and white citizens and give black people an opportunity to achieve and to have access to economic opportunities the way white people were automatically given. So he overcame those fears after many, many years of struggle, which leads us to the airport.
I was going to say, he really was able to display that diversity, that inclusion, equity, buzzwords long before they became buzzwords now, right?
Exactly.
And really demanded that black businesses have a piece of the pie, have an opportunity to be able to
women,
have...
black and women, minorities and women.
To be in the airport. So let's talk about that, because there's a beautiful picture of him in the international
terminal. Thank you. Well, first of all, that airport terminal had been on the drawing board for years. During Massell's administration.
Wow, that long ago.
They knew that they needed a new terminal because Atlanta was outgrowing the old one. And when Maynard kept saying, well, where are we on the terminal? What's happening? And everybody said, well, Mr. Mayor, we can't do it. It can't be done. And he says, what do you mean it can't be done? And so he was told, well, 85 runs through part of the land that we need if we're going to build on the existing site. And he said, and of course, people said, well, 85 is there, and so there's nothing we can do. He says, of course there's something we can do. We can move the highway. Now, I know there were some people who were probably thinking, this poor man, being first black mayor of Atlanta has affected his brain because he's acting all crazy now, talking about moving a highway, Anyway, to make a long story short, Maynard called the Department of Transportation. He had called every jurisdiction that was involved with having to move the interstate. And then finally, he reached out to his nemesis, Herman Talmadge, who was still senator at that time.
Wow.
And he called Herman Talmadge, and as a chapter in his book that he wrote that was not published because he didn't finish it before he passed. But in that chapter, he talked about Well, first of all, the name of the chapter was, "We may not know how to fly, but we're the Wright brothers."
Okay.
So
got it.
Yeah, right. So he called Herman Talmadge and he said, "Senator, I really believe that you want your city to host the greatest and the biggest airport in the world, but I need your help on it. And so, sir." And this chapter talks about how to win favors from influential people, and it talked about things like tell them that first of all, you let a powerful person know that they're powerful, and then you let that person think that they are the only one who could possibly do this thing for them, and a couple of other things. But so anyway. The senator was so impressed by Maynard. He said to him, "Well, Mr. Mayor," and Maynard noted in the book that it was interesting that he would address him as mayor. Because he had always called him Maynard before. He never gave them the respect of calling him mayor. So he said, "Well, Mr. Mayor, I see you've done your homework." And so Maynard said, "Yes, sir, I've tried to make it easy for you so that all you would have to do is allow us to convene in your office." Anyway, to make a very long story short, he got the support of all those people necessary, and sure enough, they were able to move that airport just enough for them to build the new terminal on that site.
Wow.
So it's, if you've got a dream,
nothing's impossible.
Right.
More with Mrs. Valerie Jackson after the break.
Nobody likes an awkward silence, but you can actually use it for something good.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
So Miss Jackson, coming in here, it was like, wow, this is a home, but it's almost like a museum. I mean, I'm looking at all of these artifacts here, this beautiful piano, but I'm gonna tell you what caught my eye. This book. The Atlanta Jazz Festival, 40 years.
Absolutely.
Of course, working at WCLK, I know something about jazz. Yes. And we have been a partner of this beautiful festival for many, many years. We actually just produced an amazing event for them for this past festival. This is very special to Maynard. Yes. Let's talk about this.
Well, first of all, Maynard was the first to establish a Department of Cultural Affairs in the city. Okay. Because he really believed that creativity and imagination went a long way to creating an environment where people felt that they were a part of something. His focus was public art, that there should be free concerts, free art exhibits, free, jazz festivals.
Right.
Because he believed if a person felt that they were part owners in something, and that their tax dollars were going to something, and they were able to see it and utilize those projects that were being paid for by their tax dollars, it would make them appreciate them more, but also to use that creativity to encourage them in their own aspirations. If they felt that there was a good thing to creativity, as was the Atlanta Jazz Festival, where they focused on the creativity, the ingenuity, and it was called the Free Atlanta Jazz Festival initially. And the free was not only because there was no fee to attend, but it also reflected the freedom that the artist had in their music. When they could see how people were growing out of their creativity, it inspired them to be more creative in their own lives, whether it was business or education, or the arts. So it was very important that he believed that people were exposed to different cultures and to different music and to different museums and whatnot, because it would help their own imagination to thrive.
And it really speaks to, because as you were talking, I was thinking of where America was at that time, and there was a lot of freedom in speech, freedom in rights. And as you said, freedom in the arts, and jazz is improvisational. So it's free, it's freedom in the music that you're creating. I want to put you on the spot. I want to talk about Maynard as not only a lover of the arts, but just being an amazing lover, and how that really fueled his love for the arts.
Well,
because he would leave you chocolate kisses on the pillow. Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was Hershey bars, which was my favorite candy.
Okay.
But we met in New York City when I was working there, and I met Roberta through a good friend of mine that was working in marketing and advertising.
Flack?
Roberta Flack.
Okay.
Yes, Roberta Flack. Sorry.
Okay.
And so my friend called me and said, Valerie, Roberta said, to come over on Sunday because she's doing brunch. And this friend of mine said, and you really ought to come, Valerie, because Maynard Jackson will be there. Now, let me take you back a bit.
Okay.
When I had graduated from Wharton, was in New York working, Maynard was elected for the first time back in 73, 74. And so Ebony magazine did this huge article on Maynard, about 6 pages, Maynard Jackson, brilliant, handsome, da-da-da-da-da-da. And about halfway through the article, I stopped and I said, damn. I said, now that's the kind of man I want.
Wow.
Listen,
Okay.
I want me a Maynard Jackson. I put it in the universe and I claimed
You
it.
did, you
okay,
did.
all right. So I said, I want me a Maynard Jackson. And then I kept reading and it talked about he was married with 3 kids. I said, he's taken, that's all right. I know what I want now. I want a Maynard Jackson. So fast forward 3 years and then my friend calls me and he says, you really ought to come because Maynard Jackson's going to be there and you need to meet him. I said, but isn't he married? And my friend said, no, he's cleaned his act up.
Wow.
And so he says, come on, Valerie. He said, Quincy Jones will be there. I said, okay.
The Quincy Jones.
The Quincy Jones
Wow.
got me. And Quincy would joke all the time, say, well, Valerie, Maynard, if it hadn't been for me, she wouldn't even have come to the lunch, So he claims that, right? But anyway, so I came, I saw, and I conquered. But I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, we had an immediate attraction. There was immediate. And I don't know if he was, well, I do know he was impressed that I was a Wharton graduate because very few black women had graduated from Wharton at that time.
Okay.
And so he was very impressed by that. Plus, there was a chemistry there, And I thank Roberta to this day, for having that lunch. And so moving forward, he asked me to marry him. And he was very romantic in his courting. He literally courted me. He would recite poetry to me by heart, and write poetry, Valentine's Day poem. My first poem he ever wrote me was on Valentine's Day. And so Valentine's Day became very special for us.
Of course.
And so it was really special after our first child was born on Valentine's Day. Because Maynard would always say, oh, this is a real love child.
Yeah.
This is a real love child. Yeah. And when she came a month early on Valentine's Day, he said, I told you this was a love child. And so we both fed each other, though. It wasn't just a one-sided thing where he was writing me poetry and I wrote him poetry, too. I would, do special little things for him, like keep roses in his bathroom. He even wrote me a poem about roses in my bathroom. And it ended by saying, if ever I should find no roses in my bathroom, I know that you would love me no more. And I was like, oh, you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that. But I think romance is something that's kind of been lost today with the hookups and all the other kind of stuff.
Well, people don't write poetry. I mean, everything is texting
Right,
or
exactly.
videos.
And Maynard had a few members of the Spelman choir to come and serenade me one evening on our anniversary. As a matter of fact, when we were dating and I came off of a TWA airplane, there was a barbershop quartet out there waiting for me as I came down the steps, and it sang, let me call you sweetheart. And I was like, oh my goodness. I didn't know whether to be embarrassed or impressed, right? Because everybody was turning and looked like, well, who are they singing to? And that was Maynard grinning.
You're looking like, who are they singing to? It's you.
So
Wow.
anyway, but he would do things like that, you know,
Yeah.
and we were always trying to one up each other on how to express our love for each other. But like I said, it's just, I think romance is becoming a dying art, and I think if people put a little bit more time into just trying to please the other and to show them that they appreciate them, nobody's going to ever be, you know, on the same page all the time or feeling the same way. But it's like romance is like the moon; it wanes and it waxes. Or love is like the moon; you can, you know, wane and wax. You know, but romance is what keeps it coming back. So anyway.
Wow. More with Mrs. Valerie Jackson after the break.
Give your town a reason to celebrate, because every Goodwill item you bring home brings job training and more to your community. Goodwill, bring good home.
So, Ms. Jackson, we're about to close our interview here, our conversation, and just wanted to talk about Maynard's legacy. Of course, he is no longer with us, but you're still here, and you knew him. You knew the thoughts that he had for the city, the plans that he had, the things that he had in mind when thinking of Atlanta today. And many people have asked, is this the Atlanta that Maynard would be proud of? Is this the Atlanta that he envisioned?
I think for the most part, it would be the Atlanta he would be proud of. And I say that for several reasons. First of all, every mayor since him has role modeled themselves, I think, after Maynard. He is the gold bar. He's the gold standard.
The blueprint.
Yes. And everyone who's ever run for mayor has always come to me and said, you know, in other words, most people want my endorsement because
Right.
they see it as an endorsement by Maynard.
Okay.
And I think he would be satisfied that we are continuing to move forward because of several things. One, the 3 B's, the book, the buck, and the ballot,
Okay.
which is what his grandfather Dobbs spoken about. And the other thing would be a quote by former Morehouse president, one of favorite people of all times, Benjamin E. Mays, a quote that he lived by from Benjamin E. Mays. But let me get back to the three B's. Maynard's whole strategy for the management and the administration of Atlanta was based on his grandfather Dobbs' principles of the 3 B's. The book, meaning education, and the Bible.
Okay.
The ballot, meaning the voting, the strength of the vote.
And the power.
And
to
the
be able to
power,
vote.
absolutely. And the buck, which means economic opportunities for minorities and women. All right. He has seen those 3 things being continued, maybe not to the degree that he did, but he has seen each administration to pursue those 3 basic areas and to succeed in being sure that minorities and women are a vital part of the cultural and economic aspects of the city of Atlanta. And the second part is Benjamin E. Mays' motto that Maynard literally lived by. And Benjamin E. Mays said, if you believe in something, you must act on it. If you don't act on it, it's not a belief. It's just an opinion. So Maynard was very much involved in action. He used to call himself Action Jackson.
Yeah.
You know, because he believed that in order to get things done, you needed to act on them. You couldn't just sit around and wish and talk to other people about them. You need to do your homework. You need to take action. You need to be determined. And his favorite poem is Will, which is basically determination. So I think he would be proud, of course, you know, being critical that he was. I mean, he'd drive through the city on Sunday mornings looking for potholes to report to us. He had a little recorder. He would record every time he saw something that wasn't right for his assistant to take care of the next morning. But that's how much detail he put into loving the city and observing the city and seeing what the city needed and wanted. So if they could match even half of that, then the mayor was doing a good job. I often think of an Egyptian proverb that says, to speak the name of the dead is to keep them alive. And so I will continue to speak the name Maynard Jackson, to continue to call forth his essence and his spirit, to continue to lead the city of Atlanta.
Absolutely. Well, Mrs. Valerie Jackson, thank you so very much for this time. And wow, just amazing stories.
Thank you. Well,
Thank you.
I love talking about Maynard, as if you couldn't tell.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me to be with you. Great. Okay.
Thank you for watching this special edition of Upfront Inside the Entertainment Industry. Catch Ray Cornelius every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. on Jazz 91.9 WCLK and WCLK.com.